This is going to be a video about my pregnancy with Veda and a quick little recap of her birth story. So she's currently sitting here on my knees. She just woke up from a long nap and then ate, and now she's just a little fussy. So we'll see if we can get her to be content while we do this. So Shay, our second born, was born in March of 2022 and Veda was born in April of 2023. So when we conceived Veda, Shay was only 5 months old. So it's been a big whirlwind, and I did not get a chance to do any pregnancy videos while I was pregnant with Veda. So I'm just gonna kind of give a little brief overview. We definitely wanted more kids, but we weren't necessarily expecting she was going to come when she did. But it was all, we believe in God's plan and in His perfect timing, and we're so thankful that it happened when it did and that she's here with us now. So I found out I was pregnant with her in September of 2022. I was 7 weeks when I took the test and it was positive, and because I guess I was so far along and I did not know I was pregnant or expecting to be pregnant because I just got out of the postpartum phase with Shay and my cycles weren't regular yet, and I had only had 3 and they were super irregular, so like I really had no idea. But since I was already 7 weeks when we found out, it was pretty awesome because we got to go to the doctor right away. I actually thought I might have been like 8 weeks. So the day we took the test, I called and we were able to get an ultrasound the very next day. So when I went in, I was 7 weeks in one day, and we got to see her and see her heartbeat, and that was pretty exciting because it was just like I found out and then we got to see the baby the next day, which was awesome and way different than the other 2 pregnancies I had. I found out at like 4 weeks and had to wait till 8, 9, or 10 weeks to go to the doctor. So that was super nice. My whole pregnancy with her, she was healthy and no concerns on any of the scans we had with her. We got to see her 3 times on ultrasound, and she was always doing good, strong heartbeat, measuring good, and my pregnancy with her was very normal, and I was healthy and there was no concerns the whole time, and very similar to the first 2 pregnancies that I had. My first trimester with her was the easiest, I think partly because I didn't know I was pregnant for, as soon, so there was not, I didn't have that in my head, and then also we kept it private, so it just was like more of a, not something in the forefront of my mind. And also I had, a 6-month-old baby I was caring for, and I was still breastfeeding and pumping with her, so I just think that the pregnancy in the beginning was easy because I wasn't really thinking about it. I had so much other stuff I was doing and focusing on, and it went really fast. We kept it a total secret till like 17 weeks is when I told my mom and some of my family. We told all of our immediate families around 17, 18, and 19 weeks along. So by the time like they knew, it was already halfway over basically. So that was kind of fun and exciting, and we just did that because we had an infant and a baby, and there was just a lot going on, so we just kind of wanted to keep it between us in the beginning, and yeah, it kind of made it go fast, which was nice. Oh no, she's sleeping. I would say this pregnancy I was the most tired, so especially in the 3rd trimester, I was so exhausted. I think probably because caring for a toddler, a baby, and then being pregnant and working and just being, so that was notable. And then my biggest symptom and complaint was my feet were so sore and so achy, which happened every pregnancy, but this one it was like the worst. And then I also had sciatic nerve pain, which I've had in all my pregnancies. So all 3 of my pregnancies have been the exact same. and all 3 have been fairly easy for me, and I've had no complications, and all the babies have been healthy. So I'm so thankful and blessed for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I didn't really have any specific cravings. Same with all the others, just want like carbs. And in the first trimester, I did have like a little mild nausea that would come and go, and it was just intermittent throughout the day. I never threw up, but I always just like to eat a lot of carbs and bagels, and then have some Gatorade on hand for if I ever feel really nauseous. And I gained about 25 pounds, which was about the same with the other 2. So literally all of my pregnancies have been the exact same. So because I was pregnant with her, that was something that caused an issue with breastfeeding Shay. She stopped breastfeeding around 6.5 months, and then I continued to pump until she was 9 months old. So I think I would have been about 20 some weeks pregnant. So I was able to breastfeed for a lot of the first trimester, and then I continued to pump into the second, and then finally I ended up stopping. And now this one's getting all the good milk. I think that's kind of everything for the pregnancy. It went super fast, and we didn't have to do any nesting or purchasing of anything. We obviously had everything for a baby, and it was kind of nice because everything's been basically left out, and we didn't set up a nursery because she's going to end up sharing a nursery with her sister, so that's nice. So now for her birth story, the other 2 came late, and she came 1 day early, so she came 1 day before her due date. And I, for the first time, felt a lot of pelvic pressure and felt like she could have came early, so I was expecting her anytime towards the last few weeks of pregnancy. But I went to my 39-week appointment, and they were not able to sweep my membranes because my cervix was not favorable or thinned, and she ended up coming on a Sunday. So that Friday night I went to bed kind of having like just feeling some contractions, and then that Saturday all during the day I was having just mild, intermittent, very infrequent contractions, but I did feel like she was gonna come. And around 1 p.m. on Saturday, I lost my mucus plug, so that's how I kind of knew things were really getting going. So we had the other 2 kids get picked up by their grandparents around 4 o'clock on Saturday, and I told my husband all we're gonna do is try to get this baby out. So we walked. He was really concerned he would miss dinner at the hospital, so we went out for a nice dinner at a local Japanese restaurant, and then came home. At that point my contractions were like 30 minutes apart but really intense, and then I took a bath, and luckily I fell asleep from like 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on that Saturday, and then I was up all Saturday night into Sunday morning laboring at home, and couldn't sleep because of the contractions. And Dana woke up during the middle of the night at some point. We ended up like watching 8 Mile was on TV, and then finally at 4 in the morning I woke us up for the day, and I was like, okay, like let's just get going. And we had all the bags already in the car from Saturday night, and we got up, made coffee, he made breakfast, and at this point my contractions were really intense, but like 15 minutes down to like 8 minutes apart, so still not very far apart, which technically they don't want you to go to the hospital until they're last seen like I believe 45 seconds to a minute and 5 minutes apart. So finally we decided it was time to get out the door, because I just felt like it was my third, and once things happen they were going to happen fast, so I just wanted to get there, even though technically by the book I wasn't really meeting the criteria to go in. So at 4:50 in the morning on Sunday, April 30th, I called the hospital and spoke with labor and delivery and said we were going to head in there, and just gave them a heads up because they like you to do that. and they told me not to come in, that they were on divert, which means they were sending people to other hospitals because they were not safely staffed with enough nurses to accommodate me, and that there was room, there was delivery rooms open, but that I should go somewhere else because they didn't have enough nurses there. And I decided, because the hospital was 5 minutes from my house, my doctor was going to be on call that day, I delivered there twice before, that I did not want to go anywhere else. I wanted to go there. And I said, like, I'll just come in to triage and we'll go from there. So we went to the hospital close to my house where I've delivered before, and they got me in triage and checked me, and I was between 5 to 6 centimeters dilated already. So I was going to be staying. They got me roomed. By the time I was roomed, it was about 6 in the morning, 6:30. It takes a long time to get triaged. And because it was my third baby and for how dilated I was, they were really concerned that I was going to have the baby in no time at that point. And I also knew I wanted an epidural, so they like got into like fast speed mode. They set the room up for delivery. They got all the doctor's tools out. There was like 4 nurses in there getting everything set up. They wanted to get my IV in right away so that I could get fluids before I got the epidural. It was just like a lot of commotion, and so at that point I got super emotional and was very just like overwhelmed and a little bit nervous and stressed and anxious. And I had Dano go to the car to get our stuff, and I told them that like needles and all of that made me anxious, and I broke down and cried. And then right after that, they tried giving me putting in my IV here in my hand, and they missed. So they had the anesthesiologist do that for them, and luckily he got it in. But in the other 2 deliveries, I have had a history of my blood pressure dropping. So during this, my blood pressure dropped. I was super sweaty. I was like just having a moment. And then I got my epidural at 7:30 in the morning, I believe, and also had another episode when that happened where I just felt like I was basically fainting because of my blood pressure, and they had to lay me down, and like I had a fan on me and cold towels. And at this point, this was like no surprise to me because this has happened in, like I said, the first 2 labors I had. And at that point, I really wish my mom was there because it was just Dano and I did not plan for her to be there. But when all this was going on, it was, scary and overwhelming. So then they broke my water, and that was about 8:30 in the morning. And so then they thought like the baby would be here in no time. But the weird thing was, where they had my monitor for my contractions, you have 2 monitors, one for the baby's heartbeat and one for the contractions, wasn't picking up my contractions. They like obviously didn't have it placed in the right area. So the whole time I was there, they weren't seeing that I was contracting, which was not the case. I was, but it wasn't picking it up. And so at that point I was just in my bed because I had had my epidural. It was a little scary. There was a couple times where the monitor was showing her heart rate was dropping a bit, and they had to come in a couple times and reposition the monitor and reposition me to get baby happy so that her heart rate would come back up. That was very scary because that never happened before. That also made me like break down in tears one time. My husband saw on the screen that her heart rate was still there, but I didn't hear the audio. So there was one point like I thought they couldn't find it or locate her heart rate, so that was terrifying. And this was also a surprise gender reveal. So while I'm saying her, at this point we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And then finally, like they hadn't checked me again at this point to see how dilated I was because I wasn't contracting. And around 10:30, I said, okay, like I feel a lot of pressure. Can you guys check me again? and they checked me, and sure enough, I was 10 centimeters dilated and ready to push. And that was so exciting. And finally I felt a lot of relief, because I feel like her whole labor was super emotional at the hospital, because you know, it just didn't go as I expected. I thought it was gonna go fast, and the whole time I'm laboring, they're making it seem like I'm not progressing, and they wanted to, you know, give me things to try to get me to progress more, but my body obviously was doing it. They just weren't seeing that. So the doctor comes in, and they were like, okay, you're not quite ready, keep like pushing to get the baby down. So I was pushing with the nurses, and then my nurse said, okay, stop, you're right there. And then the charge nurse, her name was Shelly, she came in and she said, keep having her push, you know, she's not crowning. And then finally I was pushing, and then the baby was literally coming out, and they said, like, stop, do not push anymore, we need to get the doctor. And the doctor was in another room delivering a baby down the hall, and they kept like being on the walkie-talkie, is he done in room 12 yet? She's, you know, Jocelyn's ready, whatever. And then they told me, stop, don't push anymore, but the baby was literally like coming out naturally, like it was just there, I didn't even need to push. So one nurse was holding the baby's head in like this, the other nurse was preparing to fold the bed down for when the doctor came in, and then finally my doctor, who's been my doctor for all 3 pregnancies, comes like rushing in the door. He's like getting his gloves on, and as soon as he got his gloves on, they snapped the bed down, and literally the nurse like removed her hand, and the baby fell into the doctor's arms, like just like that. And he had no time to like grab the baby, or like didn't need to slowly grab it and like hold it up so we could see if it was a boy or a girl. So he just flopped baby right up on me, like right here. They threw a blanket on, and I saw baby and just started hysterically crying, because it was just, that moment is just so fantastic and like the best feeling in the entire world. And I'm crying and I'm looking at the baby and I'm just so emotional. And finally the nurse is like, do you want to see what it is? And she lifted up the towel and kind of like, I guess, like held the baby's legs over, and my husband saw that it was a girl and said it was a girl, and that's how we got Miss Veda St. Cloud into the world. It was a beautiful, fast-ish labor and delivery. Like I said, the labor wasn't as streamlined as I thought it was gonna be based on how my second one went, but her delivery was safe and she was healthy and everything went amazing. And I got to do skin to skin and nurse her right away, and I think I got to hold her for like 4 hours before we had to get cleaned up and moved to another room for recovery. So overall, very good experience with her pregnancy and labor and delivery. Hers was, I guess, the most emotional, just for like just those little things I mentioned, but nothing serious or super major or scary. And yeah, now she's sleeping. So now she's 1 month old. So she came into the world a little over a month ago. But we love you, Veda, and we're happy you're here with us. Are you smiling? What are you dreaming about? Huh? I forgot to mention that she was born at 11:32 a.m. on Sunday, April 30th. She was 6 pounds, 9 ounces. I could tell she was super teeny the minute she came out. And she was 19.25 inches long. So she's our smallest baby by like basically 2 pounds. And she had brown hair And her eyes are still looking like a dark grayish, so those will change. I'm sure they're going to be brown. But she was just beautiful. She has a little stork bite there on her right eye. And a little one on the back of her head, too, under her hair. But so far, she's doing good.